Watching Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV. Thank you for joining us. Issues at Hand is proudly brought to you by Protea Hotel in Tebe. You can make your reservation and booking today. For instance, if you want conference halls where to hold conferences from, or if you want a reception venue for your wedding. A lot of weddings are happening this year, so the number is on your screen. Call right now. My name is Bruno Edgard, and on today's discussion, we are talking matters environment because it's always important, that is, to have this discussion because we must protect our environment, especially for future generations. Now, today's topic is biodiversity and environmental conservation strategies in Uganda, and we are definitely going to look at adequate environmental education as one of the strategies, especially when it comes to leading and changing the mindset of many Ugandans. And with me to have this discussion is Mr. Erisa Weraga, who is a chief environmentalist. He has been here before and he makes a triumphant return. Welcome back to Issues at Hand.
Thank you, Bruno. I'm glad that Family TV has given environmental protection a priority because even Family TV depends on wellness of the environment.
Indeed.
Even Bruno depends on wellness of the environment.
Indeed.
Even me, Weraga, my life depends on wellness of the environment. Our children, future generations, all depend on wellness of the environment. We've just heard what has happened in Turkey. An earthquake has killed very many people. Very easy examples of unwellness of the environment. Bududa, where land on mountains has been deprived of the trees and now soil moves as much as it likes. Thank you very much for giving environmental protection a chance to educate the nation and the world.
Indeed. Now let's get right into it. What are these strategies when it comes to environmental conservation that work for our country, Uganda?
I'll use a principle from the whole to the part. First and foremost, biodiversity is all life on earth, and its varieties. We have life in sea, we have life on land, we have life in air, we have life in deserts, we have life, any life anywhere. That's what we mean by diversity. And this life, we have forests, we have in which there are plants, and really life depends on plants most, and which is the weakest target when we talk about environmental degradation. The most important part of life is the weakest target, which is destroyed. All our life depends on plants, because every part of you, in P1 we studied about photosynthesis, and we know that plants produce oxygen on which we all depend. Plants produce oxygen. All of us depend on oxygen for survival. I'll give you a simple example. There are some people you might minimize, but one time I was at a hotel in Ntinda, and the man was digging a well for water. It had gone so deep. He started, che. Then he told his friends, please break those mango trees and throw them down. When they threw them down, the man cooled and started digging again. Such a petroleum digger knows that green plants produce oxygen, and he stopped the change. So you can see it is not guesswork. Scientists have discovered a long time ago that life depends on the weakest target, and that is plants in the biodiversity. I've given you a simple example. Down there when they are digging, they go with leaves, green leaves, to get oxygen. So, in this way, when we get oxygen from plants, first we produce carbon dioxide. though at times we overdo it. We overburn forests. We over-release oxygen from industrial processes and so on. And then it becomes, again, excess. And it is dangerous, like the green effect problem, where there is a layer which reflects back the heat which would have gone up. That is another problem. But otherwise, the process of photosynthesis created by God is simple. Keep plants alive, you'll get the amount of oxygen you need, and they'll absorb the carbon dioxide to use for making their food, which we eat. For us, we are consumers, we are not producers in the biodiversity system. Animals are consumers. They consume the food which they eat. But at the same time, they destroy the plants which make for them the food. I think they are like a rat, which visits you and then it eats even the money you have, the paper money. It destroys the food. So we are pests, I can say. We are like a pests. To continue, that was about biodiversity and the importance of other organisms. Almost every organism is important, and we must conserve it. But above all, plants, the tropical forests, the Amazon, the Zaire, Budong, and so on, they are very important to depend on them. But they're now being destroyed by, I don't know how I can call these policies. I was going to use a wrong word, because when I get to this thing, I get so terrible. By terrible policies. For example, the Brazil president who has just been toppled by Silvano, by who? Brazil.
Marco da Silva.
Marco da Silva had given a policy to destroy forests for agricultural purposes and industrial purposes. But God is watching.
The ex-president Bolsonaro.
Bolsonaro is the one I'm talking about. But God is very wise. When the votes came, all people changed their sides and abandoned Bolsonaro. Though he was pleasing them, politicians know how to please the populations by giving these weak targets of plants for their votes. God saved us, because 20% of the oxygen I've talked about comes from Amazon forests. And weak policies destroy the plants. So, to go back on the strategies of conservation strategies of biodiversity in Uganda, I think everybody now knows what biodiversity is. I have said it is life in its varieties and their ecosystem where they live. Life on sea, life on land, life in deserts, and so on and so forth. But it must be preserved. And the strategies in a whole, they must be environmental education or adequate awareness, and then we get the end in all this is sustainable development. Development which does not interfere with survival of the coming generations. That should be the end product. But when we introduce adequate environmental education or adequate awareness, we are aiming at changing the mindset about biodiversity or wellness of the environment. So that when someone becomes the president, his priority is protecting the environment on which he depends. That is the main objective of adequate environment education or adequate awareness, mindset. And it is very fortunate that the First Lady in October last year, he went ahead and started a project called Green Schools Project in Kalamoja. It is a project funded by UNDP and Uganda. But unfortunately, when I was researching on institutional policy, and it was institutional policy, Unfortunately, Uganda makes very wonderful policies. You see, policy has 5 stages. There is problem identification, there is problem identification with gender setting, there is formulation of a policy, there is implementation. Now on the first 2, decision and policy and formulation, we are very wonderful. But when we make the policies, they are left to rust with dust on the...
They're left on the paper.
On the paper. That is a problem. Now by then it was very live and hard everywhere. But the greening school project, now it is nowhere to be had. And Rwanda is a country which is very wise on steering our policies, which we have formulated. We make very wonderful policies. But when it comes to time near boats, those policies are buried under dust. That is the biggest problem. But green strategy, greening project of schools was wonderful, because it would change the mindset of these younger people to care for the environment. It had very strong, very strong objectives: planting trees in school compounds, educating the younger children about importance of plants. Because I was talking with a certain head teacher, and I commented that people are not encouraged to study science because they are not motivated. And he said that the most important thing is to tell the learners what is the importance. How are you going to apply the knowledge you are teaching me? You go on the board and say photosynthesis, carbon dioxide plus light plus light energy equals to glucose and so on and what. You have not told the child what is it, where is its application. Its application for you to get oxygen, so which you breathe.
Adequate environmental education is really big when it comes to environmental conservation, because it leads to mindset change.
Exactly. Those are the themes I'm talking about. Environmental education is one theme, and it leads to mindset change about wellness of the environment, and the end product is sustainable development. Development which is forever. Not like China, which ran very fast, cutting all the forests, no living, no habitat for pangolins. Now it has caught up with them. COVID-19 virus has nowhere to live except to capture the human body, because the forests are finished, where the animals in which it used to live have all been destroyed.
Very quickly, because we have to come to an end of this discussion.
Yes.
What are the other conservation strategies that really help us when it comes to protecting our biodiversity and our environment here in Uganda?
Yes, as in fact it is in the curriculum of this. I really liked the greening school project, because it mentioned 3 R's, though they are supposed to be 7. The 3 R's were reuse. We should use materials which can be reused. Another one, recycling. I was tempted to buy a battery of 270, yet there is a battery of 180 for the car. Because the lady told me that these batteries, when they get finished, the plastic is returned back to Japan to be melted and recycled to make more batteries. So it is not spreading the environment to block water channels, to be eaten in food, and so on and so forth. So the 3 R's are reuse, recycle, reduce. If you go to a supermarket and they are putting everything in a polythene paper, and then you put it in another polythene paper, You are not reducing. Please, put the mevu in one polythene paper. Put the peanuts inside that big one. Put the chocolate inside that big one. But why do you go with the 5 polythene buvera? I'm talking about buvera. Why should you go with the 5 buveras at home and yet it could go in one? You go.
So reuse, recycle, reduce.
Reduce.
Wonderful. We
Yes.
shall end that on that note, and it's very important that we apply those conservation strategies. That's one, adequate education, then things like the 3 R's: reuse, reduce, recycle. Very important. Thank you so much for taking us through that discussion, and we'll continue to talk about matters environment. But we have to go in for a quick breather, after which we are going to come back with another interesting discussion, so don't go anywhere.